The wipers squealed against the windshield, clearing a crooked path through the rain. I risked a glance at the man beside me. He had not moved since he spoke my name, Sampasa. Same unsettling calm. The storm outside was alive, wind tearing at the tree line, but inside my car, the air felt stale and unmoving. I cleared my throat. So, north, huh? That is a pretty big direction. You got friends up there? His head tilted, slow and deliberate, like a curious animal. Not friends, not in the way you mean. The radio hissed and popped. For a hot beat, I could have sworn I heard a whisper in the statica sound. That might have been my name. I turned the dial frantically. Every station was nothing but snow. The hitchhiker's lips curved into something that might have been a smile but never reached his eyes. You always do that when you are nervous. You filled the silence. My knuckles whitened around the wheel. You cannot possibly know that. I know more than that. His voice was even, almost gentle. You still have that letter your mother wrote you when you were 14. It is in the glove compartment, folded under the expired registration. A cold wave swept over me. I flicked my eyes toward the glove box without meaning to. I had not looked at that letter in years. Nobody knew about it, not even my closest friends. How I stopped myself. My first instinct was to demand an explanation, but something in me hesitated, like asking would only make it worse. The road curved, and I guided the car through the turn, the tires hissing on slick asphalt. The rain blurred the world into streaks of gray and black. The hitchhiker leaned back slightly, resting one elbow on the window ledge. His casualness was a performance. I could feel it. You are wondering how much I know. I said nothing. He chuckled softly. Do you remember that trip you took to the lake with her? The night you almost drowned? My stomach dropped. The lake? The sharp taste of river weeds in my mouth. The memory I had tried not to revisit, the memory I had never spoken aloud. You slipped, he said. You thought nobody saw, but something did. Lightning flashed, bleaching the world white for an instant. In that instant, his face looked older lined, weathered, inhumanly tired. I swallowed hard. What are you? The hitchhiker tapped the dashboard lightly, the way someone might to a tune only they can hear. You are asking the wrong question. The road signs began to look wrong. The first was subtle. A speed limit sign bent backward, numbers smeared as if they had been painted in a hurry. A mile later, a green sign for Belden, red Belden, missing the second E. Another mile, and the sign was whole again. I forced a laugh, trying to break the tension. Maybe I am just tired. Seeing things. Maybe, he said. His eyes glimmered faintly in the dark. Or maybe the road is already changing to match what you fear. The rain thickened, a heavy curtain that swallowed the world beyond my headlights. I slowed to a cautious crawl. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled like an approaching drumbeat. The hitchhiker's tone shifted, suddenly conversational. Tell me, Alex, do you believe in fate? I let out a shaky breath. I believe in bad decisions. That is what this feels like. His laugh was low and humorless. You always cover fear with sarcasm. That is why they chose you. My voice cracked on the word. The dashboard clock blinked 12:47, but the numbers flickered, briefly becoming 12:48 and then 12:44 before settling again. You will see. Soon. He turned his face toward the window, watching the rain carve rivulets down the glass. The highway stretched endlessly. No oncoming headlights, no taillights ahead. Just the storm and the hiss of tires. A sharp burst of static made me flinch. The radio clicked on by itself, the volume rising until it was a whispering roar. Beneath the static, for just a second, a voice spoke. I could not make out the words, but it felt urgent, pleading. Then it was gone. I slammed the radio off. The hitchhiker looked at me with an expression I could not read. It warned you, he said softly, but you were not ready to listen. The atmosphere in the car thickened, as though the air itself had weight. My chest tightened. He leaned forward slightly, his breath fogging the glass. You should not have taken this road tonight. The way he said so final, so certain made my blood run cold. I pressed harder on the gas, desperate to get somewhere anywhere that was not here, but the road ahead was an unbroken ribbon of wet asphalt stretching into forever. The storm outside raged harder. Inside, the quiet between us felt like the moment before a scream, and for the first time that night, I began to believe him. The storm settled into a steady rhythm, a relentless drumming on the roof that merged with the hiss of the tires. I clung to the wheel like it was the only real thing left. The headlights carved a thin, fragile path through the dark. Everything outside their reach was a swallowing void. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence was worse than his unsettling comments. It gave my mind too much room to wander, to recall the way he had said my name like he had been practicing it. Then I saw the first sign. It was an ordinary green highway marker. Belden to 12 miles. Only something about it snagged at my brain the spacing of the letters. The D leaned, as if melting. I blinked, thinking rain or fatigue distorted it. A minute later, another marker. Belden to 12 miles. That was impossible. I slowed a little, hoping I had misread the first, but 5 minutes later, another. Belden to 12 miles. My chest tightened. I snuck a glance at the hitchhiker. He was watching me now. No pretense of casual indifference. Looks like you're circling, he said mildly. How is that even? I stopped. Logic would not save me here. The road curved past a gas station, a squat building with a flickering red neon sign that read fuel. Its single canopy light buzzed. I could have sworn I had seen the same station 30 minutes ago, down to the crooked ice chest by the door. That's the same place, I muttered. It is not the first time you have been here, the hitchhiker said. I gripped the wheel tighter. I've been driving straight. I haven't turned once. His expression didn't change. The road does not need you to turn. It turns itself. My pulse thudded in my ears. Outside, the storm muffled distant sounds. No frogs, no crickets, no passing cars, just rain, and the occasional groan of wind through the trees. Another sign appeared. Belden, to 12 miles, but now, beneath it, smaller letters had been scratched in, ragged and black. Turn back. I swerved slightly, startled. The hitchhiker's faint smile did not falter. I flicked the radio back on, desperate for any normal noise. Static bled through, but under it just barely audible was the same whisper I had heard earlier. Only now it was clearer. It said my name. Twice. I shut it off with shaking fingers. The hitchhiker spoke again, voice soft, measured. Do you remember the man on Route 9? The one they found still in his car with the engine running weeks after he was reported missing. My stomach nodded. I had read about that case in some online forums years ago. Half urban legend, half Elisa report. That was fake, I said. Internet rumor? He tilted his head. So was the woman on County Road 6, and the truck driver on mile marker 41. Until they weren't. Another lightning flash lit the sky, revealing the tree line. For a split second, the trees were wronged again too close, their trunks bending inward as if they were watching us pass. I pressed harder on the gas, trying to outrun the unease. The odometer ticked upward, but the world outside remained the same endless corridor of wet pavement. 5 minutes later, the gas station appeared again. The neon sign buzzed, the crooked ice chest waiting. I slammed on the brakes and pulled into the lot. The building's windows were dark, though the neon still glowed. Rain sheeted down in silver threads. The hitchhiker watched me calmly. Do you think getting out will help? I need to prove this isn't. Whatever. This is. I snapped. I threw the car into park and stepped out. The rain soaked me instantly. I walked up to the gas station door. The glass was grimy, but through it I could see empty shelves and a single chair tipped on its side. I cupped my hands to peer inside. The interior was identical to the one I had glimpsed earlier, including a crumpled newspaper on the floor near the counter. Same date, same torn corner. My heart hammered. I got back in the car. The hitchhiker had not moved, but something in his expression had shifted. His smile was gone. Do you believe me yet? He asked quietly. I swallowed. What are you doing to me? He didn't answer. As I pulled back onto the highway, the world outside seemed to lean closer. The darkness beyond the headlights wasn't just emptiness anymore. It had weight, shape, the suggestion of movement. Then the radio flickered to life on its own. A distorted voice slipped through the static. You cannot get home that way. I lunged for the power button, but the hitchhiker gently touched my wrist. His hand was ice cold. Leave it, he said. It wants you to listen. The voice returned, whispering words I could not understand, syllables that scraped against my brain. I felt something in the air shift, like the pressure drop before a tornado. When I risked a glance in the rearview mirror, I froze. For a heartbeat, the reflection did not match reality. In the mirror, the hitchhiker's eyes glowed faintly, and the highway behind us was gone, replaced by a starless void. I blinked. The normal view returned. The hitchhiker spoke once more, his tone almost kind. We're almost there, but you won't like where there is. The storm raged on. The mile markers ahead gleamed weightly in my headlights, and I felt the road pulling me toward something I could not name. The dashboard clock flickered again 12:53, 12:51, then blank. The digits returned as 12:53 as if nothing had happened, but the brief emptiness on the screen left my gut hollow. The rain had thinned to a mist now, but the storm clouds pressed low, heavy and oppressive, as though they were waiting. I gripped the steering wheel hard enough for my knuckles to ache. My eyes burned from staring too long at a world that refused to make sense. The hitchhiker sat perfectly still, his presence filling the cabin like a third atmosphere, thick and inescapable. "You can stop pretending," he said quietly. "Pretending what?" My voice cracked. "That you are still on your road." The trees outside shifted in the corners of my vision. When I looked directly at them, they stood frozen ordinary pines and oaks dripping rain. But when I glanced away, they leaned closer, their black branches hooked like claws. I pressed harder on the gas. "I am getting us to a town. Any town." "There is no town," he said. "There is only the 10 you missed long ago." The GPS screen on my dashboard flickered to life, though I had not touched it. The map was blank, a single pulsing red dot where my car should have been. Then numbers and symbols began to crawl across the screen coordinates that did not match any place I had ever seen. "Enough!" I snapped. "What are you? Some kind of trick? Are you even real?" The hitchhiker turned his gray eyes on me, and for a moment, they were older than the road itself. "I walk roads between places," he said. "Places that used to exist. Places that never should." The words settled into the cabin like lead dust. My mouth went dry. Lightning forked across the horizon, illuminating a stretch of highway that looped back on itself, a perfect, impossible circle. The same gas station flickered into view ahead, its neon sign sputtering like a dying heartbeat. Panic spiked through me. I slammed on the brakes, skidding to a stop on the shoulder. The tires hissed against the wet asphalt. My breaths came short and sharp. "This is a dream," I whispered. "No." His voice was steady. "It is a choice." The odometer on the dashboard began spinning backward. Numbers, worry in a blur. The fuel gauge ticked wildly from full to empty and back again. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I yanked it out. No signal, but the screen displayed a single line of text where my notifications should have been "You should not have picked him up." My heart pounded. I tried to pull a U-turn, but the wheel fought me. The road in the headlights twisted literally. Twisted, curling ahead like a corkscrew. The asphalt stretched and snapped like rubber. The hitchhiker's voice was almost gentle. "This is where the others vanished." A sick realization crawled up my spine. "Others," he nodded once. "You were chosen because of what you carry. Guilt is a beacon." My hands trembled on the wheel. Images flashed unbidden in my mind. The lake, the scream I had never told anyone about, the shadow of a choice I regretted but buried. Outside, the mist thickened into a wall of gray. Shapes flickered inside it, silhouettes of cars, drivers frozen with mouths open in silent terror, like photographs abandoned on the highway. The neon gas station sign died with a soft pop, plunging the world into a deeper darkness. "I can stop this," I said, not believing my own words. The hitchhiker looked almost sad. "No. You can only decide how long you run." I tried the brakes. The pedal sank with no resistance. The car crept forward on its own, tires gliding silently over the wet pavement. The road stretched and folded, the horizon forever just out of reach. In the rearview mirror, for an instant, I saw my own face, but older eyes hollow, lips cracked as if I had been driving for years. The reflection's mouth moved. I could not hear the words, but I could read the shape of them. Turn back. When I looked again, my normal reflection stared back, pale and sweating. The hitchhiker leaned closer, his voice a whisper. "Do you feel it yet? The moment you left the world, you knew." I stared straight ahead. The trees were bending again, branches arcing over the road like ribs. "Why me?" I demanded. "Why tonight?" "Because you always drive this road," he said. "You just do not remember the other times." The dashboard lights flickered once, twice, then glowed an unnatural red. A low hum filled the cabin, vibrating the seat beneath me. The hitchhiker's form seemed to blur at the edges, as if the world could no longer decide what he was. The road ahead opened into an expanse of misty nothing. I could not see the asphalt anymore, just a pale void, stretching forever. "This is the turn," he whispered. "If you get this far." My breath caught in my throat. The hum rose into a sharp, electric whine. The air smelled of ozone and wet earth. And then, all at once, the trees, the storm, and even the rain vanished. The world outside the windshield was an endless gray plain under a sky with no stars. Beside me, the hitchhiker's voice carried the weight of inevitability. "This is where the others vanished." The car drifted forward, tires gliding noiselessly over a surface that was no longer asphalt. The horizon was a blank smear of gray, like an unfinished painting. My headlights seemed to dissolve into the mist instead of cutting through it. The dashboard clock blinked once 12:59, then froze. The hitchhiker sat unervingly calm, hands folded in his lap. His stillness was almost worse than any overt threat. My heart hammered against my ribs, and every breath scraped my throat raw. I stomped on the brakes. The pedals sank, useless. The car rolled on, obedient to some unseen momentum. "I am not going any farther," I snapped, though my voice cracked halfway through. "You already have," he said softly. I wrenched the wheel, trying to veer off course, but the world did not change. The gray stretched infinitely in every direction. Even the rearview mirror reflected only more of the same endless nothing. Desperation clawed at my chest. I shoved the gear shift into park. The car did not slow. I yanked the keys from the ignition engine still humming. "This is impossible," I whispered. "Not impossible," he murmured. "Just unfamiliar." I glanced at him, searching for some flicker of humanity in his gray eyes, but found none. "What do you want from me?" "Want?" He tilted his head, considering. "Perhaps I want you to understand. Perhaps I want nothing at all. Perhaps the road itself is hungry." The hum in the air deepened, vibrating through the steering column and into my bones. I felt dizzy, like the world was spinning. Even though the gray remained static, then I saw a faint line ahead, darker than the surrounding void. A horizon, or maybe a doorway. As we approached, shapes began to coalesce. Trees bending in unnatural arcs, their trunks twisted like rope. Between them, shadows flickered too tall, too thin. I could feel the hitchhiker watching me even without turning my head. "I do not belong here," I muttered. "You never did," he replied, "but you keep coming back." The words lodged in my skull, an echo of something I should remember but could not. The shapes at the horizon sharpened. The trees were actually signposts, hundreds of them, jammed into the ground at odd angles. Their signs bore no words, only symbols that pulsed faintly, like veins under skin. My reflection in the windshield shifted. It did not mimic my movements. It stared back at me with hollow eyes and a mouth twisted in a silent scream. Panic flared white-hot. I unbuckled my seatbelt and lunged for the door handle. The hitchhiker's voice was still calm. "You can leave the car," he said, "but you will not leave the road." I flung the door open anyway. A cold wind, sharp and sour, greeted me. My shoes met ground that felt spongy and unsteady, like walking on soaked carpet. The mist swirled around my legs, clinging. Behind me, the car door shut on its own. The engine idled, driverless. I backed away, scanning for anything familiar. The gray plain stretched forever, but now I could see faint outlines of vehicles, cars, trucks, motorcycles scattered in the distance like abandoned toys. Some were rusted husks, others looked pristine, as if their owners had just stepped out. A whisper threaded through the mist. At first I thought it was the hitchhiker, but the sound came from all directions. It was my name, dozens of voices saying it in perfect unison. My pulse thundered. I turned in a circle, searching for the source. That is when I saw him. The hitchhiker stood 100 feet away, though I had not seen him leave the car. His shape was blurred at the edges, as though the world was struggling to contain him. "You can keep running," his voice carried, somehow both distant and right in my ear. "But every road ends here." "No," I shouted hoarsely. "I can get back." He took a single step forward, and reality shuddered. The signposts around us flickered, their symbols briefly rearranging themselves into letters. "Turn back, Zen," shifting into gibberish again. The mist thinned for a heartbeat, and I saw the familiar curve of my own street beyond the gray, a glimpse of home so vivid it hurt. I sprinted toward it. The ground sucked at my feet, each step heavier than the last. The whispering voices rose to a deafening chorus. Behind me, something massive stirred a ripple through the mist that felt alive. The hitchhiker's voice followed, no longer soft but sharp as broken glass. You cannot outrun what you invited. I leaped through the thinning mist and landed on my driveway. The storm was gone. The sky was a clean, star-studded black. My car sat behind me, spotless, dry. The dashboard clock blinked 1 o'clock. For a moment, I hoped it had been a hallucination. I laughed, a wild, shaky sound. But when I glanced at my front porch, my laughter died. A trail of wet, muddy footprints led from the driveway to my door. They were too large to be mine. I fumbled with my keys, hands trembling. Inside, the house was dark and silent. I locked the door behind me and pressed my back against it, trying to slow my breathing. Then 3 soft knocks. I froze. A voice, distorted and low, seeped through the wood. Long drive. Huh. My keys slipped from my fingers. The sound they made on the floor was loud enough to wake the dead. The knocks came again, patient, unhurried, and then silent. I backed away, inch by inch, my pulse roaring in my ears. Somewhere in the house, deep in the shadows, something moved.